Imagine this scene. It's 9:45 in the morning. You're sitting in a hearing room.
Right.
You can hear that low hum of the air conditioning. You know, the kind you only get in government buildings.
Oh, I know that sound. The fluorescent lights buzzing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's tense, but it's, standard. And then suddenly the entire energy in the room just snaps.
And we're not talking about some big shouting match here.
No, not at all.
No.
Not a meltdown for the cameras. We are talking about silence.
The kind of silence that's so total that almost hurts your ears. The vacuum where a defense strategy used to be.
Yes. And the source material we're digging into today, this really, really detailed analysis from Build the Insight, it describes a moment that just defies every expectation we have for this kind of political drama.
It really does.
We're looking at a closed-door hearing. A former president of the United States. And when his entire defense falls apart, he doesn't explode. He slumps. He physically folds into his chair.
It's a fascinating image, isn't it? And today, we're going to unpack exactly why that slump happened. Build the Insight has laid out this fictionalized but incredibly granular legal scenario. It's set in the year 2026.
Okay.
And it explores the testimony of one specific witness, the former president's daughter, Ivanka, and how her testimony just dismantled a whole legal strategy in, a matter of minutes.
And I think it's important, before we get into the weeds, to state what our mission is here.
Right.
Because when people hear daughter testifies against father, your brain immediately goes to Shakespeare, right?
Right.
Or maybe HBO's Succession.
It feels like a soap opera. And that is exactly the trap we need to avoid here.
Okay.
If we just focus on the betrayal or, the family drama, we completely miss the signal and the noise.
We miss the point.
Exactly. The analysis from Build the Insight argues this isn't about a family feud at all. It's about evidence. Specifically, it's about a single red folder.
A red folder.
That one object is what shifts this entire case from a conversation about, say, mishandling documents, which just sounds bureaucratic.
Right. It sounds boring.
To a conversation about criminal intent and obstruction.
It was a whole different ballgame. Mishandling sounds like I lost a receipt. Obstruction. Well, that sounds like handcuffs.
Completely. So our job today is to look at the mechanics. Why did the defense collapse? What does the timeline tell us? And why on earth is a red folder the most dangerous object in that room?
Let's start with the atmosphere then, because the source paints such a vivid picture of that room right before it all went wrong. It's 9:45 a.m. Up until this point, the defense team is feeling, pretty good.
They are. They have a narrative and they're sticking to it.
A narrative we've seen before.
1,000 times in white-collar defense, they're blaming rogue staffers.
Ah, the old rogue staffer defense.
The idea is simple. Low-level aides, they move some boxes around, they pack the wrong things by mistake, and the big guy at the top, he was just too busy governing or campaigning to notice.
It's the I'm too important to know what's in my own box's defense.
Exactly. Plausible deniability.
Yeah.
You build a wall around the leader. You say, he deals with the big picture. He doesn't know what's in box number 42.
And usually that works. It's hard to disprove.
It's very hard. It's almost impossible to prove that a CEO or a president knew about some specific administrative action involving, packing tape and cardboard.
But then the reaction happens. The source describes the defendant, the former president, watching his daughter take the stand. And instead of the explosion everyone expected, the color just drains from his face.
Yes.
The source says he started whispering urgently to his lawyers.
And the source makes a really critical distinction here. They argue those weren't angry whispers.
They were panicked.
They were panicked whispers. In legal terms, a breakdown isn't emotional, it's strategic.
Right.
And the source draws a really interesting parallel here to organized crime trials.
I saw that. Comparing a presidential hearing to what a mob trial is.
Yeah.
That's bold.
It is bold, but structurally, it really holds up. If you've ever watched the dynamics in a courtroom with a major cartel figure, there's the specific look they get.
What's that?
It's the moment they realize the math just stopped working. It's the look of someone realizing the insulation is gone, that firewall is gone.
The rogue staffer defense.
It relies entirely on that firewall between the boss and the action.
And if the boss was in the room giving the orders?
Then there is no firewall. Plausible deniability just evaporates. And that brings us to the witness herself.
Okay.
The expectation, according to our source, was that she would play the game. You know the drill.
I don't recall.
I'm not sure.
It's all a blur.
The standard playbook. But she didn't use it. This is where the source really leans into the details. She didn't offer vague memories. She established a timeline that was razor sharp.
And I want to dig into this because to a layperson, dates and times can seem boring. But in court, dates are weapons.
They are the only weapons that matter.
So she testified that she was personally instructed by the defendant to separate personal letters from business records.
Okay.
But then she nails down the details. The location, Bedminster, New Jersey. The date, a specific Tuesday in June of 2024.
Not sometime that summer?
No, a specific Tuesday. Why does that level of specificity matter so much?
Because of corroboration. Think about it. If you say, I think it was sometime in the summer, that's soft. I can't check that against anything.
Right.
Maybe you're misremembering. But if you say, it was Tuesday, June 18th, 2024 at Bedminster, now I, as a prosecutor, I have a roadmap. I can pull flight logs, I can pull Secret Service movement records, I can pull cell phone tower data.
You can prove she was there.
And more importantly, I can prove he was there. That specificity, it just creates a trap for the defense. Because you can argue against a vague memory.
She's confused about the dates.
Exactly. It was a busy time. But when a witness says, on this specific Tuesday at this location, I received this specific order, and that witness is the defendant's own daughter.
That's devastating.
It pins him to a time and a place. It just removes all the wiggle room.
It's like being caught on a speed camera versus a cop, just estimating your speed. One is data, the other is an opinion.
Completely. And then came the moment that, according to the source, sucked the oxygen out of the room.
The big question.
The prosecutor asks, did you see what was inside the boxes marked personal? Now, I think we'd all expect a dodge here.
Right. She could say, I didn't look inside, I just moved them.
But she didn't. She answered with one word.
Yes.
And she didn't just say papers.
No. She described government markings. She described foreign intelligence summaries.
Things that absolutely do not belong in a box marked personal at a golf club in New Jersey.
And this is where the rogue staffer defense just effectively dies on the floor.
It's over. You cannot blame a low-level aide for packing the wrong box when a family member testifies under oath that the defendant gave the direct order and knew exactly what was inside them.
It's a direct link.
It connects the action directly to the defendant. But there's one specific item she mentioned that matters more than anything else.
The red folder.
The red folder.
Okay, so let's deep dive on this folder. Because to the average person, a folder is a folder. Red, manila, who cares? Why does this one red folder make a former president slump in his chair?
It's so much more than the classification. This is the smoking gun because of the chronology. To understand why, we have to look at the timeline the source provides.
Okay.
This is where all the legal puzzle pieces just click together. Back in 2022, the defendant signed a legal affidavit, a sworn statement to the government.
And an affidavit, that carries the weight of perjury if you lie, right?
Yeah.
It's not just some casual email.
Absolutely. It is a sworn declaration of truth. In that 2022 affidavit, he stated that this specific red folder had been returned to the National Archives.
He attested, I do not have this anymore.
Correct. So on paper, in 2022, the government thinks the issue is resolved. He says, I gave it back.
Okay.
But then you fast forward to the testimony about that Tuesday in June 2024.
And his daughter testifies she saw him holding it, reviewing it.
This exact same red folder, 2 years after he swore he gave it back.
That's the catastrophe for the defense.
It is. It proves 3 things all at once. 1, he lied on an affidavit. 2, he knew he still had it. This wasn't some forgotten box in a basement.
And 3, he was actively using it.
He was actively using it.
And the contents. The source says they were highly sensitive.
It contained classified intelligence assessments. But here is the detail that really nails the concept of mens rea.
Okay, explain that term for us. We hear it on legal dramas, but what does mens rea actually mean in this context?
It's Latin for guilty mind. In criminal law, to prove a crime, you usually need 2 things. The actus reus, the guilty act, and the mens rea.
The guilty mind.
You have to prove the person intended to do something wrong. For example, say you walk out of a grocery store with a candy bar you forgot to pay for because it was stuck to the bottom of your cart.
Okay.
You committed the act stealing, but you lacked the mens rea. It was an accident. You didn't intend to steal.
Got it. So how do they prove guilty mind with a folder? Can't he just say, oops, I forgot I had it, just like the candy bar?
He could try. If the folder was pristine, just sitting at the bottom of a box gathering dust. But the testimony revealed that the documents inside had handwritten notes in the margins.
In his handwriting?
In his own handwriting.
Wow. Okay. So you can't say, I didn't know I had it, if you're writing notes on it.
Exactly. You can't claim accidental retention if you are annotating the document. You cannot claim ignorance of its location if you are holding it in your hands.
It changes everything.
It moves the needle from passive storage, like, oops, I left a box in the garage, to active use. He was reviewing classified intel at an unauthorized location after he swore he had returned it. That is the difference between a mistake and a crime.
It really paints a picture of why the mood in that room shifted so drastically.
Mm.
But I have to ask the question I think every single listener is thinking right now. Why? Why did she do it?
What did Ivanka flip?
Yes. This is her father, the family brand, the dynasty. Was this some kind of moral awakening? Did she suddenly decide to save the Republic? Or is the source reading it differently?
The source is, well, very cynical about this,
No,
or
it's-
maybe just realistic. It suggests the answer is a hard no on the moral awakening.
It's so not about ethics.
No, it was about the pressure
Or
cooker.
pressure cooker.
Yeah.
It sounds intense.
It's a classic prosecutorial strategy. You don't start by squeezing a stranger, you lean on the people who have the most to lose. And the source points out this witness isn't just a daughter, she's a business entity.
She had assets, a reputation she's trying to rebuild.
She has a lot to lose personally, and she has her own legal exposure.
Right.
The source mentions the receipts. The prosecution didn't just walk in there hoping she'd tell the truth out of the goodness of her heart. They had surveillance tapes. They had flight logs.
Oh, of course. So if she sits there and says, I never saw any boxes, and then the prosecutor just hits play on a video of her standing next to the boxes.
She goes to prison for felony perjury. It is that simple. The source argues her calculation was pure self-preservation. It's a version of the prisoner's dilemma.
Protect her father and destroy herself, or tell the truth and survive.
And she chose survival.
That makes a lot more sense. It's less Shakespearean tragedy and more corporate risk management. She looked at the balance sheet of her own life and made a call.
In a way, yes. And the source notes something really telling about the defense's reaction to her testimony. Or rather, their lack of reaction.
They didn't really cross-examine her.
They didn't aggressively cross-examine her at all.
Yeah, the source called that silence deafening. And usually, in the movies, that's when the lawyer jumps up and screams, "Isn't it true you hate your father?" or something. Why wouldn't they try to tear her credibility apart?
Because you only do that if you think you can win. You don't attack a witness when you know the other side has the receipts to back up her story.
It would just make them look worse.
It would make them look desperate and dishonest. If they called her a liar, the prosecution would just lay out the surveillance footage, the logs, all the evidence proving she's telling the truth. Their silence was an admission of defeat. They knew she had them cornered.
So we have the what? The red folder. We have the who, the daughter testifying to save herself. Now let's talk about the when,
Right.
because this isn't set today. The source reminds us this scenario is set in 2026.
This is the fictional framework Build the INSO is using.
Yeah, and within that framework, it implies something massive, that there's a sitting president now implicated in these crimes.
Which creates a huge complication. This is where we get into what the source calls the constitutional stress test. We are in completely uncharted waters here. The system is blinking red.
Because of the Department of Justice policy, right? That you can't indict a sitting president. We've heard that phrase for years.
Correct. But, as the source points out, those are OLC Memo's Office of Legal Counsel. They're internal policies. They're not laws written into the Constitution. They were designed to prevent a president from being distracted by, say, trivial lawsuits. They have never been tested against facts like these.
Right. We aren't talking about a civil suit for a bad real estate deal.
Exactly. We're talking about active espionage-level behavior-taking nuclear or military info, lying to the FBI, pressure and cover-ups. The source argues that the gravity of what's in that red folder changes the entire calculus.
So if the system ignores this, if they just say, well, he's the president, so we can't touch him, what happens then?
Then, as the source argues, you have effectively legalized espionage at the executive level. You've created a class of person who is simply above the law when it comes to national security.
That's a heavy thought.
The stakes, according to this analysis, aren't about who wins an election. It's about whether the legal system can hold a leader accountable to the written law.
It feels like an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object. The machinery of justice against the machinery of political power.
And the source has a great line about that. It says, "The system grinds slowly, but it is working. The facade has cracked. For so long, the defense relied on spin, on media narratives, on bluster. But inside a courtroom, especially a closed-door hearing with sworn testimony, Spin doesn't work.
Only evidence works. You can tweet whatever you want, but you can't tweet your way out of a red folder with your own handwriting on it.
Exactly. The folder is a physical object that anchors the truth. It proves the intent and the cover-up. And the testimony provides the timeline that makes the folder lethal to the defense. It just strips away all the political noise.
So let's just recap where we are in this scenario. We have a collapsed defense. We have a family member who chose self-preservation over loyalty, a smoking gun and a red folder, and a constitutional crisis brewing in 2026.
That sums it up pretty well. It's a perfect storm of legal and political pressure.
But wait, there's one final twist in the source material that we have to mention. Just when you think it can't get any more dramatic, the source brings up the wife, Melania.
This is the provocative question the source leaves us with. We know the daughter spoke. She flipped to save herself. Now the source says the wife is maneuvering in the shadows.
Apparently, after a Supreme Court appeal, rejection is mentioned in the timeline. She's looking for her own exit strategy.
It raises a fascinating question, really, about game theory. If the daughter, who was part of the business, part of that inner circle, flipped to avoid perjury, what will the spouse do?
She has her own interests, her own assets.
And maybe a very different calculation about loyalty. The source calls it a chess game. If the red folder was check, the spouse's move could be checkmate.
It makes you realize these aren't just characters in a story. They're rational actors making cold calculations about their own survival.
When the ship starts taking on water, everyone, even the family, starts looking for a lifeboat.
It's incredible to think how much weight one small red folder can carry. It changes the entire trajectory, of everything.
It does. It shows that in the end, the law often comes down to the simplest things. A date on a calendar, a handwritten note, and a folder that just wasn't where it was supposed to be.
Well, that's a lot to process. A red folder, a quiet hearing room, and a massive shift in the balance of power. It definitely makes you think about the difference between what we're told and what can actually be proven.
Absolutely. The truth has a way of showing up, usually in the details you least expect.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive into the red folder and the testimony. We'll catch you next time.